Have you ever been in a room where you wanted to speak but something held you back? Later, you replay the moment in your head, wondering if your silence made you look weak or unsure. You're not alone. Most people think silence means you're afraid or lost. But what if that quiet moment was actually your strength? What if silence, used the right way, was more powerful than any words you could have said? Some of the greatest minds in history didn't win by speaking louder. They won by knowing when not to speak. And next, we'll explore how one of those minds, Friedrich Nietzsche, turned silence into his most powerful idea. What if silence wasn't a way to hide, but a way to win? That's exactly what Friedrich Nietzsche, let's call him Nietzsche, understood deeply. He wasn't the type to raise his voice, argue, or chase approval. Nietzsche knew something most people still don't. Silence doesn't mean you're missing from the moment. It means you own it. His quiet wasn't emptiness. It was a powerful presence that made people stop and wonder. And this presence, it had the power to outthink, outlast, and outshine anyone trying to be the loudest in the room. In the next part, we'll look at why silence can feel painful, and how you've likely felt this power without even realizing it. You've been there, haven't you? That moment when you had something to say but stayed quiet, and later felt ignored or invisible. It stings. You wonder if speaking up would have changed everything. But here's the surprising part. Maybe that silence wasn't a mistake. Maybe, without knowing it, you were already using the same tool that powerful thinkers like Nietzsche used. You just didn't realize its strength. You weren't weak. You just hadn't learned how to use silence with purpose. And now we'll explore the deeper idea behind this silence, the philosophy that gave it meaning and power. In most situations, people speak loudly to prove a point, driven by ego, fear, or the desire to win. But Nietzsche saw how empty that noise could be. To him, true strength didn't need to be loud or seen. It didn't chase attention or demand agreement. Real power, he believed, was quiet and steady. The person who truly holds control isn't the one making the most noise. It's the one who can remain calm, centered, and silent. And that kind of silence, it opens the door to a different kind of strategy. One built not on reaction, but on quiet control. Let's look at how this silence becomes a powerful move. This is where the real shift happens. Silence stops being something passive and becomes something sharp. Picture yourself in a room, watching every move, catching every word, but saying nothing. You're not invisible. You're unpredictable. People feel your presence even if you haven't spoken. That quiet energy, it's not about staying out of the way. It's about staying in control. Silence makes others reveal more than they should, while you stay unreadable. It builds tension, draws attention, and gives you the upper hand without lifting a finger. This isn't silence from fear. It's silence by choice. And it's from this place that Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch begins to take form. A person who leads not with noise, but with presence. Let's meet that figure next. Nietzsche's idea of the ultimate human, his vision of power, wasn't about being the loudest or most dominant in the room. It was about being the Übermensch, or the Overman. This figure wasn't driven by reaction, emotions, or the need for validation. Instead, they were calm, composed, and unreadable. The Overman's silence wasn't a retreat. It was a force. Their stillness didn't shrink the space around them. It commanded it. The room felt their presence, even without a word spoken, because they didn't need to speak to hold control. The silence of the Übermensch wasn't emptiness. It was a quiet authority that everyone around them could feel but couldn't predict. Next, we'll dive into the psychological effects of silence and how it can mess with people's minds. Silence has a powerful effect on the mind. It throws people off balance. When you stay quiet, others begin to project their thoughts onto you, constantly wondering what's going on in your head. This creates a sense of tension and uncertainty that lingers in the air. It even starts to make people uneasy, sometimes afraid, because they can't read you. For those who try to manipulate or control a conversation, silence is their worst enemy. When you refuse to react, you take away their power to influence you. Silence, in this way, isn't just absence. It's a strategic weapon that disrupts the control others think they have. Now that you know the psychological weight of silence, let's look at how you can turn this knowledge into action. Now that you understand the power of silence, the real question is, how do you use it? The key is not to confuse silence with passivity. This isn't about being quiet because you have nothing to say. It's about choosing when not to speak. This is active silence. It's a conscious decision to observe, to control the room with your presence rather than your words. When you master this, silence becomes a weapon, and it's incredibly powerful in the right hands. It gives you the advantage, allowing you to hold the upper hand without making a single move. In the next part, we'll break down 4 specific strategies you can use to harness silence like a pro. Here are 4 powerful ways you can use silence strategically, each designed to give you control in different situations. The delayed strike. When you feel the urge to react, stay silent and let them talk. This gives you the advantage by revealing more than they intend. The hunter's gaze. Watch everything. Speak nothing. Your silence makes you an observer, while others miss what you're noticing. The tension pause. In tense moments, use silence like a sword, letting the quiet linger and build pressure until it shifts the situation in your favor. The unreadable force. Don't let anyone predict you. Stay calm, remain silent, and confuse them with your stillness, creating uncertainty that works to your benefit. These aren't just tools, they're weapons, and Nietzsche mastered them all to perfection. Let's set the record straight. Silence doesn't equal weakness. Choosing to remain silent is an act of power, a deliberate decision to hold control. On the other hand, being silenced is a sign of submission. When your voice is taken away, that's when you lose your power. What truly matters is the reason behind your silence. It's not the quiet itself that defines you. It's the purpose behind it. When you choose silence, you're making a statement, not surrendering. Too many people remain silent out of fear of judgment, conflict, or rejection. Society, upbringing, and past trauma often condition them to stay quiet, not because they want to, but because they've been taught that silence equals safety. But this is not the kind of silence Nietzsche advocated. What he described was the silence of power, not submission. The silence of someone who could speak but chooses not to, because they don't need to prove anything. True strength comes when you have the ability to speak, yet decide that silence serves you better. This is the silence of the Übermensch, not the obedient. Ask yourself, how many times have you spoken just to be heard? How many times have you found that silence held more weight than any words you could have said? Now, imagine becoming someone who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Someone who commands respect, not through loud declarations, but through a quiet, undeniable presence. That's the power Nietzsche was teaching us. The trick he left behind, to wield silence as a weapon of influence, outsmarting everyone around you without uttering a single word. This is the silent power of the Übermensch, unshakable, composed, and always in control. It's not about speaking less, but about choosing when your voice truly matters. If you're ready to harness the power of silence and use it like a weapon, comment below with, "I choose the silence that commands respect." And if you're eager to dive even deeper into the mind of Nietzsche and explore the psychology of self-mastery, make sure to watch the next video. Trust me, you won't see silence the same way again. Final line. The weak shout, the strong remain silent.